All right. So I don't really want to do a video about feminism. It seems stupid to me. I never even really run into it. I hear about it a lot on, podcasts, interviews of different types. It seems like the world is in a giant fit where, at least in the West, it's not fair to have a gender and it's not fair to be anything. You just have to be gray goo. If you're a man, you're part of the patriarchy. If you're a white man, you're part of the super patriarchy. If you're a black guy and you support Black Lives Matter, you're some kind of terrorist. You can't be anything these days. It's a little fucked up, right? So I'm going to try to ignore most of the retarded arguments the retarded people are making. And believe me, there's retarded people on the many different sides of the issue. Notice you want to think that there's two sides. There's not. There's a lot, and they're mostly wrong. So I'm just going to try and speak some of the things I know to be true, and hopefully that adds something valuable to the discussion, if you want to call it that. So first, specialization leads to excellence, right? That's why when you go to college, you major, right? And if you're an arts major, you're probably not an engineering major. And if you're an engineering major, well, you're probably not an entrepreneur trying to start a business at that moment, right? Specialization is what allows us to be good at things. So how do you know that someone is of one specialty and not another? Well, you could test them, right? So how do you know that girls are weaker than guys? You test them, right? Hey, look, here's a giant heavy rock. Can you lift this? No. Okay, well, most guys can, so you're weaker, right? So at some point, people learned that if you collect together and bitch and moan, you can change the world. It works. If you bitch and moan and cry enough, everyone listening to you is tired of hearing about it, and then they change, right? Now, maybe you caused them through your bitching and moaning to notice that they were internally discongruent and they should be living their life a different way, and they're not just irritated. You enlightened them. Okay, maybe that happens. So let's talk about feminism. What is it that feminists want? Well, first, they don't want to be labeled, so they don't want to be called feminists, unless they're calling themselves feminists, and then they're okay with it. All right. Two, they want to get paid more, which is weird because they already get paid the exact same amount of money for the exact same work. Now, I can think of some places where the work seems the same, like a movie, right? Like a male actor is going to get paid a lot more than a female actress. And you might say, oh, well, they're doing the same work. Yes, but they're not filling the same seats, right? And the people that produce these multi-$100 million films, they really care about getting people into the theater to make the money back and some profit. And if they know that certain names are going to bring more people in, then they're going to pay those people more, right? Or those guys are going to work on different movies. So, for the most part, women get paid the exact same as men for the exact same work. Or you would see things like companies taking advantage of all of these women that work for damn near free. And there would be kick-ass companies full of women doing great work. The company didn't have to pay the girls much because they were willing to work cheap. And you don't find that anywhere. Anywhere. Why? Because they're not willing to work cheap, right? So where does this whole 100%, 70% comparison where people say that women make 25, 30% less come from? Because women get jobs that pay less. It's not that they do the same work and get paid less. It's that they enter into jobs that pay less. Why do they do that? Well, some of them have kids, and when you have kids, it's pretty hard to work, and then there's a big hole in your work history, right? So whatever you were doing, you're not doing it anymore. So if it took you a year to do that, and probably it should take more than a year if you want to do a good job raising your kid, right? I don't think a kid is something where you can pop it out, put a year in, and say, hey, I'm done. I think it takes longer than a year. So if raising children properly takes longer than a year, that year has to come from somewhere. I think that year is going to come out of your profession. So if you took two guys and you took one of the guys and you said, hey, you need to be on pause for, let's call it a couple years, and let's check our earning potentials out. The guy that didn't take a year off is getting bonuses, out competing people, learning new skills. The dude that took a year off is fucked, right? How would he catch up? Why would he catch up, right? So you can't take one gender that takes years off because they should to raise kids, the most important thing that exists. Look, what's more important than kids? Do you like mankind? Would you like it to continue? Well, someone has to have the kids, right? Would you like those kids to be smart and not fucked up? Then their parents need to spend time with them, right? Well, that time needs to come out of their profession. So, point one, women get paid the same for the same work. If it seems like they're not getting paid for the same work, maybe you're missing some side benefit that guys are bringing to the table that girls aren't. Maybe it's filling seats at a movie theater. Maybe it's raw strength. Look at sports. What does the female NBA make? What does the men's NBA make? No one's watching the female NBA. It exists. No one watches it. Interesting. I wonder what percentage of feminists watch the female NBA just to be equal, you know? It's like, hey, I know this other product sucks and they're not as good at it. Nowhere close. But I'm going to pretend it doesn't suck to try and pretend equal, right? Hey, you know when you go to the supermarket and there's like shelves on the bottom that have food that tastes like shit, like that cereal that tastes like it's shredded cardboard, right? Well, those guys are probably just bad at making cereal, so let's level the playing field and not punish them for having bad packaging, bad placement, and bad flavor. Let's go right to the bottom, save a nickel, and eat food that tastes like shit for quality, right? Equality is the fucking enemy, okay? Equality is literally the enemy of excellence, right? Would you rather be at the top of the food chain or in another world where everything eats everything else randomly? I would rather be at the top of the food chain. Would you rather go to the best doctor in the world or the middle of the road guy? You know, could have been a lawyer, wasn't that good at it, decided he would rather work on flesh. I would rather go to the fucking good doctor, right? But for you guys out there sprouting shit without thinking, you guys should go to the bad doctor and make these arguments far easier to win. So, if you're arguing for equality, you're an idiot. Equality is not what you want, okay? Excellence is what you want. And in some places where you give people equal opportunity, you get more excellence. That's great. That's what a fair playing field is, right? That's what the government's supposed to do. No monopolies, no consortiums of people conspiring to keep the prices high and not giving anyone any deals. Yeah, that's good. That's a fair playing field, right? Hey, property exists. I can own something and you can't steal it, or some guy will come and hit you with a stick and bring you to jail, right? Or in America, they might just shoot on sight. Dangerous place over there. So if it's not equality that we want, what is it that we want? Well, let's think about it. Women want more power. Okay, go get it. Go be better at things. The Chinese are doing it. The Indians are doing it. You go to any college and you look at any testing scores of the Indian girls and the Chinese girls, and they wreck, destroy white guys, crush them, right? Now, why do they do that? How do they do that? Do you hear the white guys in there like, you know what? We need to make these Indian girls stupider because they're destroying us in all these tests. No, nobody's arguing that. They earned it. They studied harder. They put more hours in, and they get better scores, right? You can do that same shit after you graduate. You can keep outperforming and keep outscoring and keep earning more than everyone else. No one's stopping you, right? Now, if you have free time and you're not spending that time making yourself better, you're not spending that time becoming excellent, you think because you have a vagina instead of a cock that now you deserve some type of like stimulus plan? Like Barack Obama's got to reach into his pocket and hand you cash because you're missing some man meat? It doesn't make any damn sense, right? If you decide to create equality by paying the losers more than the winners because the winners earn more and the losers earn less because the losers lose and the winners win, you get what happened in Russia. That's what happened there. That's why it sucked, right? Like, oh, well, we're not going to let businesses figure out what things cost. We're going to set that from the pricing part of the government who sets the prices. And they're going to set the prices for everything because those guys that work there are somehow going to beat the market and beat the wisdom of crowds. But they didn't, and it was terrible, right? And what did you get? You got more and more corruption because people didn't earn through the free market what they deserved. They took what they could get. And so the saying over there was, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. That's a bad system, right? So you women out there that want more, go and fucking get it, right? Look at Europe, right? I shouldn't make fun of Europe, but I'm going to. If you go to France, everybody's on strike, always. So you want to get in a train, trains are on strike. Garbage in the streets, garbage guys are on strike. What's up with all the strikes? Like, when do you guys actually work, right? So if you want to be the society that barely works and has shitloads of free time and, has summer cottages that they spend time in, whatever the deal is, there's a cost to that. It's not fucking free. You're not working. You're not being productive. And therefore, your society is going to lose something. There is a cost to that, right? Now, in America, we have it pretty fucked up. Everyone works all the time. No paid days off, no paid maternity leave. You want to leave? Not getting paid, right? And everyone's in debt up to their necks so that they have to just keep working and working and working and getting more jobs and working more hours just to pay off the debt that they've accrued. Now, that's horrible for the individual. The individual's fucked. It's a terrible, terrible way to exist. Oh, you get a flat tire, can't drive to work. Can't drive to work, can't pay your rent. Can't pay your rent, lose your house. Can't get a shower from your house, no one wants to work with you. Can't get a job, right? Downward spiral. So it's terrible for the individual. It's really good for the society, right? If you try and start a business anywhere in the world and you want to sell things to people, no one is more likely to buy whatever you're selling than an American. He will go into debt to buy what you're selling. If you try and start a sales business selling anything in the whole rest of the world, they just straight up tell you no. Like, no, not buying it. Nope. And so their economies are slow as fuck because no one will buy anything, right? So, like, look at the startup scene. Look at the general sales numbers. Americans, because they're willing to buy and willing to work like insane madmen to pay off what they bought, it's actually quite good for the world. Bad for the family, bad for the individual, good for the world's economy, right? Which means that those few people that have figured out that you shouldn't sacrifice your whole life for hours and money, they'd get to live a higher quality of life because someone else over there is sacrificing it. It's just like getting paid a lot for doing a dangerous job. Guys are something like 80, 90, 95% of workplace deaths. They work in the dangerous jobs. Women don't. I don't hear a lot of calling by feminists to equalize those numbers. Going and defending your country off in another country, let's be serious, America doesn't actually do a lot of defending their country in other countries. But whatever the hell it is, blowing up brown people and rocks all over the world, shifting the rocks around, Far-Offistan and all that, that's mostly the guys that have to do that. Now, could we send women? Sure. Maybe if we send in 2 or 3 times as many women, sustain 2 or 3 times as much loss, maybe we could get the same job done. I don't hear a lot of people lobbying for women to sign up for the draft. Why not? You guys want equality, right? You want to make more money. So I'm going to need to see some fingers getting cut off, arms missing, a lot more dead ladies, a lot more women blown up by IEDs. Once we get some of those things in, then we could start to call you guys more equal. Or we could stop trying to shove equality everywhere. When I go to eat, the fork does one thing, the knife does another thing. I don't try and use the fork to eat spaghetti, rather the knife. You don't want to eat spaghetti with a knife. It probably is a terrible idea, right? So stop trying to shove equality everywhere, okay? You're not supposed to, when you take your test, there's A, B, C, D, F, right? Well, first, what happened to E? I'm curious. Why does no one get E? And second, not everybody gets the same grade, right? Not everybody's the same height. Not everybody has parents that love them. Not everybody is white or black or brown. Stop trying to make things fucking equal. We don't want more equal. We want more excellence, okay? And so in those few places, well, probably more than few, right? A lot of places equality exists. Genders are not one of them. Hello, YouTube. Hi. I'm Video Guy. Video Guy. So, feminism. Everyone wants to be a feminist these days. You can't really trust most things that end in ist. Do you know anything that ends in ist that you like? Proctologist. I don't. So it turns out in biology, there's this thing called sexual dimorphism. And what that means is sometimes the guys are bigger than the girls. Sometimes the girls are bigger than the guys. And based on those differences, just size alone, you're going to get huge differences in behavior. Now, why would that exist? For the same reason you don't have 11 quarterbacks in a football team, because specialization allows for excellence, right? So let's say we're, a couple thousand years ago, and life's a little bit harder. We've got a kid. We're trying to raise that kid, make sure it doesn't get eaten by lions or whatever other predators are running around. We want to make sure that that kid turns out fabulously, right? Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to clean it when it's dirty, feed them, love them, hug them, train them, teach them. So the question is, how many people do you need to take care of that kid at the same time? So let's say that for the purposes of this thought experiment, that taking care of kids is a motherly activity, which it pretty much is, because until guys start squirting titty milk, the kids are going to starve just hanging out with guys, right? They really need to hang out with some women, particularly ones that are lactating, right? So kids born, hanging out with mom, breastfeeding, right? They're exchanging information through the milk. The kid's telling chemically the mom what it actually needs through the breastfeeding, through the suckling. The kid is getting lots of immune system through the colostrum from the mother, right? So, and the mother's having changes to her psychology from the oxytocin release and other chemicals. It turns out that if your tits are full of milk, having a kid suck the milk out makes them stop hurting. It's a good reward, right? We like it when our tits don't feel like exploding. At least I do. Except when I'm getting my swole on. So, what if the man that helped create the child, acts just like the woman? Wants to hang out, even though he doesn't have titty milk. He's just hanging out, being there. Well, where's the food going to come from? You got to eat, right? I mean, it's not like you guys are like living on top of a banana tree or something. You're probably living in shelter, and there's probably not food growing in your shelter. Well, someone's got to go and get the food, right? So should that someone be the mother that is the only one that can feed the child, right? It can't eat cheeseburgers. It needs milk, period. Milk. That's what it needs, right? Well, I think that the father should go and get the food, because if the father dies while trying to get food, the mom can still go get it. But if the mom dies while trying to get food, the food doesn't fucking matter, because the mom has to process the food into milk to feed the kid, right? So it's blatantly, wildly obvious that children need their mothers more than they need their fathers. Now, you could try and invent like a very convoluted, there's just this one lady that's got titty milk all the time, so, we can let the original mom die. I don't think anyone's stupid enough to make that argument. At least I hope not. Don't read the comments, right? So we know that men and women are different. Kids only pop out of women. Kids only get fed by women, right? The mitochondrial DNA only comes from women. The father has no part in it, right? So, for you guys that didn't know, you don't have just one set of DNA. You have at least two. Your set that came from mom and dad, and then the set that's in your mitochondria, which is separate. It just comes from your mom. Crazy. Then there's some people in this world that actually have more than two sets. They're chimeras. Some of their DNA is mixed up differently than some of their other DNA. Crazy. Those people aren't that common. So the point is, if you're arguing for equality and you're arguing for the destruction of diversity through making everything the same, a giant gray goo of mankind, you're an asshole. We're not supposed to be equal. That's why we have roles. That's why we have specialization. That's why we have different kinds of cereal. We don't have one kind of fucking cereal because it's unfair for Cheerios to be different than Fruit Pops. No, they're supposed to be different, okay? If you look at countries where people have the most opportunity, right? Let's look at Scandinavia, the most opportunity, the highest disposable income, the most safety. They win best countries in the world every year, It's not an accident. It's measurable, right? These aren't party animals that are raiding these countries. These are pretty nerdy sociologist types and economist types that have decided that these places are awesome to live in, right? When's the last time you heard about a terrorist attack in, say, Norway? I can't remember one. There may have never been one. Well, I guess there was that white dude on the island. That guy killed a lot of people. But other than that guy, not so much terror going on there, right? So the point is it good for human beings to search for equality? Yeah, it is. It's also good for us to search for patterns, right? Is it good for us to search for equality and patterns in the wrong places? No. If you're taking a shit and looking for signs of extraterrestrial life in it, you're fucking up. I mean, I hope you're fucking up. I don't want there to be but aliens. I don't think I do. So, my point, stop arguing for equality where it's harmful to have it, okay? I don't want idiots programming my computer. I don't want the world's best brain surgeon compounding my medicine. Brain surgery involves knives. Compounding medicine involves mortars and pistols and whatever else they're using. Not a lot of knives. They're two different skill sets, right? And life is complex enough where you can't be good at everything. You can only be truly exceptional in a couple things, period. That's it, just a couple things, right? There's not that many Michelangelos running around who are polymaths and Renaissance man. And even if there was, I bet he'd whoop a lot more ass if he sticked in a single domain. Depending. Probably being multidisciplinary paid off better in the past when we had less discoveries. Now that we've dived so much deeper down all these paths, it's harder to make, it's harder to even get caught up down a single path to be able to add from another place in an exciting way. So, you guys out there that are searching for equality, it's beautiful. Keep up the good work, but holy shit, leave it out of gender and leave it out of men and women. Men and women were working just fine for thousands of years. And you destroying diversity and making everyone a gray goo of gender, it's not making the world a better place. Luckily enough, the world doesn't give a shit enough about what you're talking about to really change much. So I guess we've got that going for us. Stop advertising and marketing for something that if you stopped for 10 minutes and actually thought about what the world would look like, you wouldn't want it, right? Oh, and by the way, it's actually a competitive system out there. If you become too much of a bitch, another country comes and fucks you up. So, you know, maybe the reason no one's invaded and fixed North Korea is because they're willing to fuck people up, right? And maybe the more bitch mode your society is, maybe someone comes and takes it from you. You know, acting like a pussy is not without cost. Ask any high school kid what acting like a pussy gets you. Well, it gets you knocked around a lot because society punishes those that act like pussies for a good reason. Some people that were on the fence and could have gone ultra pussy or not, well, they decided to stop being pussies because it didn't pay well, right? It's not an accident. It's built into the system and it works. There's a lot of other ugly shit that sucks that works, like bears eating their kids. That's horrible. I don't want to see that, but it works. You don't have to compete with that bear next year, right? So, life and reality and biology and evolution, these things have figured out a lot of shit that you guys just getting out of college have not figured out. No, that's all I'm going to say for now. I got about 1 million other points I'll probably share with you in the future. Let's talk about politics. You ask somebody whether they lean left or lean right, and it's pretty much the least resolution that you could possibly look at a person's beliefs. If you go to a restaurant and you order lunch, you're going to have 20, 40 options. But if you tell someone your political beliefs, you're asked whether you lean left or right. That's one bit of resolution. That's a single on-off switch. That's almost the least resolution you could possibly have. And if you think about the number of controversial topics that people care to discuss, they might be defense spending, foreign relations, abortion, term limits, gerrymandering. There's some inflammatory, argumentative issues out there, but you probably wouldn't find 100 popular ones. You may not find 40 popular ones. And if you can't find 40 popular things to argue about or be well educated enough to be qualified to argue intelligently about, then you may be better off listing them instead of saying you lean left or lean right. If we can do it for a lunch menu, we can do it in conversation, right? A common thing that you'll see is that people won't describe themselves as leaning left or leaning right. They might say something like socially conservative, fiscally liberal, or socially liberal, fiscally conservative, which is just an extra bit of resolution, an extra on or off switch, taking the states that you could have from 2 possible states over to about 4 possible states. Not a whole lot of detail. If the JPEGs that you looked at on the internet were encoded in 4 bits of Keller, they would be pretty damn ugly. It helps to have a lot of more gradations, and then you have all these beautiful Kellers without banding and such, right? We should have the same intelligent analysis of our own beliefs in regards to politics. So just because you think that the minimum wage is a good idea, you may not think welfare is a good idea. Just because you think the minimum wage is a good idea, it doesn't mean that you're pro-life or pro-choice, right? These things can be measured and thought about on their own, and it's rather insulting to assume that things are the same when they're different. If I were to tell you all black people are the same, you'd say that's stupid. If I were to tell you all Italians are the same, you'd say that's stupid. But then I say that same thing in code when I say, are you on the left or the right? It's the same thing as saying everyone on the left is the same and everyone on the right is the same. It's it basically promotes argument and promotes difference because you're amplifying the amount of difference. And the more and more resolution that you have to reason about and look at a person's real beliefs, the more similarities you'll find. And when you have to be left or right, it's very hard to be similar to anyone else. And in systems that require a 2/3 or a 50% majority to get a law passed or certain legislative things done, you really only get things done through consensus of larger groups of people. And so the more argumentative the media makes things, if it bleeds, it leads. Let's get the most extreme positions we can get out here. Screw the voice of reason. We just won't have reason. We'll have crazy left, crazy right, and in the center, we'll just leave a hole. Sorry, center. There's no third seat at the table. It doesn't sell tickets, right? So when you've got the polarizing effects of the media and you've got the polarizing effects of the 1 bit of resolution of left versus right, you're having unnecessary arguments and therefore less progress than you could have because you don't even know what you agree upon because you never get to it because it's not that exciting to argue about, I guess, right? I mean, there's a reason I'm talking about politics. People love to argue about it. So where there's argument, there's a potential, right? Like it's like a conflict. When you can resolve a conflict, it's free profit, so to speak. It's like getting rid of friction, right? So if you're trying to like make your car faster, if one of your brakes is locked up, well, getting rid of that friction would be super free extra speed, right? And handling. So let's stop calling what we are 1 bit left or right, 2 bits fiscal this, social that, and come up with a list of the top 10 hot button issues, and then you just say those, right? So I'm pro-life, fiscal conservative, social liberal, right? I'm actually not pro-life of things that aren't yet alive. Having done a fair amount of masturbating in my time, I would like to think that I didn't kill millions and millions of people every time I let some of my seed not find a fertile egg, right? So if you believe that there's a point where life starts and it's not when you ejaculate, I could see a pretty good argument for being pro-choice, right? And there's another odd structuring. Who isn't pro-life? Everyone's pro-life, right? I guess, except for executioners and people on juries that execute people. I'm not really sure. It's rather unfair to frame an argument where both parties are pro-life, but only one gets to carry the banner, right? And both parties are pro lots of choices all over the place, but only one gets to carry the banner. I think that the more misleading the titles are that you give the participants, and the more forced and contrived the banners they have to carry advertising their position are, the less and less progress that you get, because it's already hard enough to reason about these things, these complicated issues, without the cloak of poorly chosen descriptions and inflammatory, polarizing media, right? So, in summary, if you're going to talk about politics, which no one probably is going to, people like to argue about these things, especially as they age. I think it's funny as people, as they get older, their sphere of influence gets wider and wider, and they start to, they may start out trying to get out of their parents' house and then trying to get into their own house. And then once they get on the condo committee, now they want to control your house, right? And they want to control what you can do with your window dressing and what color you can paint things. And it seems like old people really want to get in your business, right? They're really concerned with what you're doing, especially in the privacy of your home. It's you wish they had something better to do with their free time, right? Hey, old people, make YouTube videos. Leave your neighbors alone. Stop looking in their windows with binoculars and trying to insult their lifestyle choices, right? Today I'd like to tell you why gambling sucks, and poker sucks, and video games suck. So, in this world we have a ton of really complex problems. Problems so complicated that by the time you die, much of them will go unanswered. To take a world like that, where we have so many good competitions to be had with nature, and abstract and replace our natural competition against nature with a competition against other people, well, it's much less exciting. If you're able to compete against reality and solve a problem, discover something, invent something, that type of discovery lasts throughout the ages, a lasting testament to your existence in this world. Whereas the competitions that you have in silly made-up things versus other people are much less challenging target than this giant world of energy and mass that we live in. So let me give you an example. If you go on television or you watch live streams on the internet, there's a lot of people, intelligent people, that are very, very good at playing poker. And poker is a game that has a limited number of players and a limited number of skills that you learn, which are exportable to other areas. You could say that you learn some game theory. You could say that you learn how to read other people and control communication, being able to tell bluff from real, reading intention, perhaps empathy, feeling into the types of responses and feelings other people would have when they get certain sets of hands. The problem is that if you were to isolate that behavior to just an island, right? If you were to say there's 7 people in the world and they all live on this island, and those 7 people are going to play a card game with each other, and all they're going to do is play that card game, well, nothing would get done. They would all starve to death because you need to eat, you need to take care of your family, you need to go to the bathroom, right? There's more to life than playing card games. And it's much worse than it sounds. You're not only getting very good at something which doesn't have a benefit outside of it, but even worse than that, you're harming all the people that you play with. It's not even a zero-sum game. It's a less than zero-sum game because the house takes its rake, takes its percentage, and you had the transition time to get there, the transition time to leave. You occupy your consciousness with reading books and watching other excellent people play and theorizing about new strategies. The game doesn't end when you leave the table. It doesn't start when you get to the table. And the costs and influence that it has on your life go far beyond the place in which you play, to the point where there's some people that play at home and they'll play 10 hands at once across 10 screens or, 10 windows in the same screen. And it just occupies more and more of their consciousness to the point where they're really just bad computers, right? Or I'm going to stick with bad computers. I mean, you could say you could be a great computer if you're able to win money at poker, but if you're tactically right at strategically the wrong thing, it's worse, right? So a computer that would be very good at masturbating all day, it could be the world's best masturbating computer, but other than maybe the viewing rights that you could sell, it's not really useful to the rest of the world, right? So point one, fight the real world, discover real things, have real challenges in reality instead of fake abstracted challenges versus people. Because it's a less advertised path that less people take, there's much more profit in it. The more people that do a thing, the less money there is in that thing, and poker's one of those, right? It's not hard to play poker. There's guidebooks on it. How many real guidebooks are there on how to live real life? There's not that many, right? So, you know, what guidebook do you know that tells you what kind of girl you should date, what job you should work, whether you should wear briefs or boxers, you know, how to get better sleep? You kind of got to read 20 books to do that, right? So, one, do not spend your time competing with people. Spend your time competing against the reality of the world that we live in. Discover new things, right? Don't discover how to just take someone else's money. Two, it's not a zero-sum game. It's destructive. The money that you win came out of someone else's pocket, and that person's probably not very happy. You're, to some degree, harming that person. Third part, when you win at poker, you actually lose. Probably should have put that as part one. The person that loses at poker no longer has their life consumed by this stupid game and has the opportunity to go and interact with the real world and do things that are actually rare and actually valuable, that have lasting value. Whereas the person that wins at poker or wins at the stock market or wins at any other game versus other people, they have harmed someone on the other side, the loser. They have usually not invented something new, made lasting change in the world. I guess you could call it competition masturbation. Like, masturbating feels good, but it's not that productive, right? And winning games feels good, but it's not that productive. It feels really good, by the way. Winning a fight, winning a game, winning any competition, at least to the masculine energy, is very, very, very consuming. So don't compete versus other people. Compete versus the real world. You make a lot more money. Realize that whatever it is that you get good at is going to consume a lot of hours out of your life. And so you be very careful what you choose to get good at and what your hobbies are, because those hobbies are what you're likely to go into for a profession, or it'll influence the people that you meet. It'll influence, who you have kids with, right? You're going to enjoy the things that you get good at. So feel free to choose something you don't like when you start, but is valuable and pays well, right? And then once you get good at it, now it's fun. It may not have been fun when you started. I mean, how fun would learning the violin or, learning to dance be when you suck at it? It's probably terrible. Or God forbid you learn to play the drums in a small house. Your family's probably really going to dislike you, probably forever, but at least when you start out and you suck, right? So compete versus the real world, not fake competitions versus people. Realize that whatever you hobby at is going to influence the connections you make in your life, the relationships you have in your life. It's going to take over your consciousness. There's more valuable in doing the things that less people are doing, usually, because our value is in indirect proportion to the availability of a thing. So the more common a thing is, the less valuable it is. And the less common it is, the more valuable, usually, right? And realize you're hurting someone on the other side of the transaction, and realize that losing can actually be winning if it gets you to go do something productive instead of staring at a screen all day, doing something which doesn't feed anyone, doesn't build anything, doesn't help anyone. Shifting zeros and ones around on the stock market or shifting poker chips around a table. These are not the highest and best uses of the most intelligent people on the planet. I know there's value in the accurate pricing of securities, but you could say that there's too many smart people staring at screens trying to figure out how to screw other smart people out of their money. And at some point, it's really not healthy for the the ecosystem that we live in. It's much better that we have less people trying to shave fractions of a second or fractions of a millisecond off of front running a trade, and high frequency trading. And if all those people would stop doing that mental masturbation, human competition thing, and switch into productive things that influence the real world, discovery, you can still compete, start a business. You're still competing, but you're competing not in some fake abstraction that was created by a man with man-made rules, but but participating in the real world that makes all the stuff we use and decides how people spend all the hours of their life. If you start a business and you employ people, you literally decide how these people will live over a third of their life. That's huge. I mean, that's absolutely huge. I think that to have that responsibility to control the lives of so many by being an employer is a far better and higher calling than finding a way to take money from some poor other bastard that may have got dealt a bad hand or may not have the same skills as you. He's the guy that actually gets to go and work and replace that money and make the world a better place, while you're just sitting around as the winner figuring out how to screw more people out of their money. It's not that wholesome. It's not that great. And if you look at the Fortune 400 richest people, they're not poker players. They make their money doing other things, because doing other things pays far better than winning a game or playing a game. This video's about why you should speak about controversial things. If you live in a bubble with all your friends checked off on boxes, you get their messages, they get your messages, you all subscribe to the same Twitter people, you all watch the same TV shows, it's very hard for you guys to have different opinions factually about different things because you're all getting your data from the same places. So if you speak about controversial things, particularly with people that have a wildly different point of view than you have, then you'll be able to learn something that you didn't know. And if you're right and you're compelling, you might have a positive influence on the people that you're speaking to. If, however, you're wrong, then you let the world know that you have a belief that is inaccurate and should be corrected. This is part of the reason why I'm against people being shut down from communicating in forums and on Twitter. It should really only be reserved for the most heinous of abuses, because if there's terrible people in the world doing terrible things and thinking terrible things, how else will you hunt them down and stop using their business or, tell your friends not to interact with them? Like, if you leave hidden pockets of stupidity and wrongness and evilness in the world that don't get discovered because they've been silenced, it makes the world a worse place. It's a much better world that we live in with not just the First Amendment's free speech, which stops the government from interfering with the freedom of press and the freedom of expression, but it's also for private free speech. Because the First Amendment, though it may protect you from the government, it doesn't protect you from private entities, right? Anyone that owns a forum or a newspaper or a television show is not obligated to give you time or treat you fairly or even say nice things to you. They are required to not tell lies about you, slander you, or libel you. Slander if it's written, libel if it's spoken. But short of that, the protections that you get from the government, you don't get from private people. So the magic is, you should speak controversially. In order to make progress in this world, we need more people speaking truth to stupidity and speaking smarts to stupidity. And if magically, as many, many will find out, they indeed are the stupid ones, it's better that we know who you are and try and work our way around you than find out after the fact and, endure harm doing business with or interacting with someone that is just horribly bad in ways that are important, right? If someone's favorite ice cream flavor is vanilla, another person's favorite ice cream flavor is chocolate, I don't think it's going to make the world's biggest difference in regards to whether you commit, to commerce with them or, interacting with them in a friendly and social way. But if someone, is a Naziist or whatever other evil flavor of the month is popular, probably you don't want to team up with that guy or partner with that guy, right? It could be the end of your career. So, step one, speak controversially. If you're not saying things that are somewhat outrageous, one, you don't stand out as much, right? Did I go into the store and think, hey, I want to look like some type of vampire guy? No, I thought, yeah, that looks awesome, right? and then you wear it, and it's fun. It's a little hot under the hat. You tend to sweat a little bit, but it's good fun, you know? So speaking controversially, particularly if you're, authentic and compelling and cogent in your arguments, it's awesome. Step 2, don't try and shut people down immediately. Let them show exactly how stupid they are. And then once they've, shown how stupid they are, take advantage of those block buttons. You don't need to block their communication with the whole world. You really just need to block it with you, right? And then 3, spread those ideas, right? If you go to a party and they say, don't talk about religion and politics and, whatever other subjects are the most touchy, maybe you're going to the wrong parties, right? Maybe that's the fun stuff to talk about. Maybe people don't want to just talk about the weather and see some kids' photos, right? If you want to see this world become a better place, it's hard work. And there's a million ideas out there that need changed and need fixed, and they need smart people talking about them. And the sad thing is that the stupider people are, the less they realize they're stupid. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. And so the stupidest people will speak and yell and without any fear, any doubt, have 100% certainty try and change the world to their stupid way. But the most thoughtful and intelligent people are the most fearful and have the most doubt, which is why if you ever go to any meeting of truly, truly people at the edge of their field, barely anyone speaks with 100-degree certainty about anything because it's the limit of everyone's knowledge and everyone has humility, right? So give it a shot. The stupid people are already talking as loud as they can. If you're not an idiot and you've got something good to say, please share it. Please speak about controversial things because I can guarantee you a great, great number of people that could be convincing the rest of the world to live better lives or have better ideas or do better things. They're not doing it, and it's out of fear. Just like, I used to live for a good part of my life. I didn't have a YouTube channel. I wasn't buying ads so that I could try and make a world a better place. Well, it's not that hard. You just got to, have the courage and do it. So you want to get rich. I'm going to tell you a little something about money. In this world, you don't see the richest people doing things with their time and getting paid hourly. There's not enough hours in the day. If you're the highest paid lawyer, the highest paid doctor, no matter how much you make, there's still just not enough hours in the day. There's only one of you, right? We may have different educations, different skills, different opportunities, but the one thing we all have the same is our time. So in this world, if you want to become truly wealthy financially, you need to do things which aren't based on your hours. That means that you need to start a business or own something, because when you're sleeping, the things that you own will still be working, right? So let's say you own a piece of real estate and you rent it out. When you go to sleep, your real estate's still working for you. Let's say you start a business and you have some employees doing the work. Once you can afford your first employee, you can waste your time however you like, assuming that the employee you hired is the right one and can do the job as well as you used to, right? So something that I advise people to do is your first goal should be to buy your own freedom. You should be working so that you don't have to actually show up to work anymore. You can go learn the next thing to take it to the next level, because most businesses aren't going to make you a billionaire. Most businesses won't make you a millionaire. In this world, for you to be a billionaire or a millionaire, you've got to fight the effects of competition. You've got to fight the effects of taxation. There's a whole ton of things in this world trying to make it so that you can't get that rich. So what are some things that you can use to your advantage? Well, I love to use things that can scale. And scale is just a fancy word for if it works one time, you could do it 10 times as well, right? So let's say you're in a service industry and you've got to go door to door and fix air conditioners. That's really hard to do because if you need to fix twice the number of air conditioners, you need twice the trucks, twice the tools, and twice the insurance, and twice the advertising, perhaps, and it takes twice as much time, and the trucks break down, the people don't show up on time, and half the employees have drug problems for whatever reason. Maybe it's a Florida thing. And it just doesn't scale well. Now, there's other businesses that scale totally well. Let's say you have a software business or software as a service. You get one client, great. You get 2 clients, great. How many clients can you put in a single server? Hundreds, thousands. You don't have to do anything different. It's just zero. The fancy word for it is zero marginal cost to provide the service to the next person, right? So there's some businesses like moving boxes where if I sell boxes of things on the internet and make 40% markup, Or let's say it's a competitive industry and I make 15 or 20% markup. Well, could I sell 10 times as many boxes? Yeah, surely I could, right? Could I sell them into other countries? Could I relabel them? Could I give them certain different features? Could I differentiate my product in a different way? Yeah, sure, I could. But what if I just have a local retail storefront? Once you've like capped out on the number of people you can reach locally, you can't bring people from out of state. They just don't want to make the drive, right? You can't stock as many things on your shelves as for display. You run out of display room, right? Some people you want to, sell their stuff and they see you're selling a certain competitive product, they won't let you carry their line because they don't want to, compete in that area. Or they've already got so many other retailers in the area that they don't need you. So I love the idea of things which scale and multiply, but you might not be able to start there. You might have to buy your freedom first. So what I tell people is, if you're smart enough to know what to buy for yourself, then you're smart enough to help other people buy the same stuff, right? So I happen to like this top hat. Some top hats, when you look on the side, they just go straight. I don't like a top hat that goes straight. I like this curve deal. Some top hats just come up straight on the top. I think it looks boring. I like a top hat that flares at the top a little bit. So I probably know more about top hats than the average gentleman. And now that I know what the hell I'm talking about, I know which one holds their shape. I know what type of shape is good. I know which ones aren't going to sweat on your head too much. I'm now qualified to sell them better than most other people because I had to learn these things to get a good product for myself anyway. So now that I've learned these things for myself, it's a somewhat tragedy to just let that information die inside me. Why don't I set up a store, set up a little website, costs almost nothing, and say, look, I know what the best top hats you can buy on the internet are. Here they are. I'll drop ship them to you, or I'll ship them to you myself, or you can come see them in my store and take whatever you pay for them. Most things are made in China. You buy them, you stock them. People call, they want it. You bring them to your house, you sell it to them. You don't have to open up a storefront. You can sell it out of your house. You don't have to make tons of money. I prefer products that are $200, $300 so that you can make, $100, $120 when someone comes to your house, right? If you do really low ticket items, you got to sell to so many more people. You got to sell to 3 or 4 times the people, or maybe 2 times the people if you raise your margins up. So my point is, do something small that you can make a little money on. Anything that you're intelligent about, you can make money on. We live in a world now, like some German guy wanted to kill and eat some other German guy. So he put out an advertisement and said, hey, I'm looking for someone that will let me kill and eat them. And someone responded. And he let him kill him, and they ate him together before he died. So that teaches you that whatever crazy, silly thing that you can think of, you can find a counterparty on the internet. Whatever silly thing that you want to sell, if you get that ad on the internet, you can get someone to call, and this likely you'll be able to do some commerce, okay? So if you're smart enough to buy anything for yourself and have any product knowledge at all, then you're smart enough to get a good deal on Alibaba, AliExpress, Banggood. There's a lot of .coms out there that'll give you the best deal in the world on a thing. And just put out an ad locally. If the phone rings, great, you get to make a little money. If the phone doesn't ring, great, you have that product that you bought at a low price, you get to use it yourself, right? So in this world, if you're working by the hour, there's no future in it. There's no long-term future in working by the hour. You take a guy like Michael Jordan, multi-millionaire, the vast majority of his revenue does not come from his earnings as a football player. Sorry, basketball player. The vast majority of his earnings come from owning his likeness and owning his ability to put his name on things. And you can sell that away, right? Like the Beatles sold away their rights to their music, even though they made it. So just because you made it doesn't mean you own it. You can sell those rights, and you can buy them as well, but usually you got to have, a fair amount of money to do that. So in this world, since what you do hourly doesn't scale, you need to own things. You need to own businesses, real estate, intellectual property, patents, or else you don't have any future of becoming a billionaire. I can't think of a single human being that has ever become a billionaire in the history of mankind that's done it by the hour. It just doesn't exist. So work hourly, get your business started, save up. You're going to use that money to get your inventory, to get your stock, to buy yourself some more time, right? And then, retail only goes so far. Once you bought your freedom in retail, then you can go into things that scale, things that have network effect, things that are, next level, things that venture capitalists would invest in because they can make 10, 100 times their money. If a venture capitalist can't make 10 times his money, he's not really interested in your business because he knows 9 times out of 10, what he invests in isn't going to work. So he needs that 10th one to pay at least tenfold to at least break even on the 9 that he lost on, right? And these are professionals that do it for a living. So if you're ever gonna buy your freedom, you got to start small, right? And whatever money that you save that you don't waste on things that you don't need is money that can go into your inventory and go into your advertising. And so I suggest you don't fall for stupid scams on the internet with people telling you that you're going to get rich quick, and all they do for a living is teach people how to pretend to get rich quick, and they just take your money, the money that you could have used to actually start a real business that actually provided real value to real people. If you're paying $3,000, $5,000 to some guru who's going to tell you how to get rich, yet he doesn't use it himself, you have to be curious. How would you know when your military spending got too high? I'd say when you own 90% of the world's aircraft carriers, had 2 giant masses of water to your right and your left, and were spending more than the next 5 to 10 guys combined. You may be spending too much. So what could you do to stop wasting money over securing things? Well, 1, you could cut spending, but it would hurt the economy a bit because now these people, they don't have jobs, right? So what else can you do? You can retrain them. Well, no one likes retraining, right? Or maybe if you can drive a bullet 100, 200 yards downfield, you could actually do a pretty good job with a nail gun. And then when kids graduated college and high school, they might be able to actually afford a home that's not inside their parents' house. I don't think that in a world full of technological progress and apparently political and social progress, that it's fair that no young person has any hope or any chance whatsoever of owning their own home. But, 50 years ago, they did. Going to school sucks because most of the things they teach you there, you'll never use. Go and look at any successful person in this world. Start quizzing them on things they used to know from school. See how much they still know. Here, we'll start with you. You remember how many planets there are in this solar system? Remember, we lost one just recently. Pluto. Now, do you remember their order from the sun? You were taught it, right? Surely you were taught the order of the planets from the sun and where Earth sits amongst them, right? You probably don't realize it, that you've forgotten because you never used it. Why'd you never use it? Well, you don't have a spaceship where you have to hang a left at Mars or miss your turn, right? So, what could we be teaching kids instead of things that waste their time and that they'll never use and they'll forget and or misremember, which can be even worse? How about how to be a good friend? How to give a good apology? How not to get scammed? How to save your money? How to invest? How to delay gratification so that your investment today can turn into something bigger in the future? Whether that's investing in education and learning things that are useful, or, actually saving up some cash to start a business, or buy the S&P 500, or whatever tickles your fancy as far as making your future brighter and better goes. So if you look at the world's most successful people and you see that they've all forgotten the same things, maybe you should stop teaching those things. Let's take history, for instance. One of the greatest things history can do is prevent the same mistakes happening in the future. But what we found is, study history as you might, the same mistakes keep happening anyway because the history isn't being referenced properly. So maybe the education and smart parts of history should be codified into frameworks that you can apply to future thinking. And if history was so great anyway, you'd see people learning from the 10 times larger number of experiences they've seen people have through film. The protagonists in films have overcome obstacles and done great things hundreds and hundreds of times, probably per year per person. And you have to wonder how many times those learning experiences, learning through the mistakes and successes of others, have really paid off for people in general. I would say that a well-made, memorable movie is probably more useful for increasing the decision-making skills of those who watch it than a short paragraph on something, a person that you can't really see, can't really hear, can't really associate with too well from long, long ago might have done. I mean, even the language has changed to the point where much of the meaning is lost. So let's teach our kids things that they can actually use, right? Let's perhaps let them specialize. If in this world the most valuable knowledge is the least abundant knowledge, then teaching everyone the exact same things makes all of the knowledge that they have the same amount of valueless. Why is it that when you graduate from a good high school, the only jobs you can get are terrible? Shouldn't you be able to earn a living and do something good for the world or good for yourself as soon as you graduate? What the hell were you doing with your time? Take, for instance, software. The majority of people spend their day staring at screens, and those electrons tickling those pixels to make colors to go into your eyes are managed by software. And most of the things that you'll see are managed by software. So we live in a world where software is insanely profitable and consumes tons and tons of human consciousness, but they don't even teach it in school for the most part. What a terrible idea. The world's changed massively in 100 years, but the education system hasn't. So let's let people specialize. Let's let them not waste their time. Let's make it more than just some place where you go to be babysat. And then when you graduate, you can feel proud knowing that you can do something useful. Voting for the lesser of two evils sucks. So, got a couple solutions. 1, have less evil people running for office. Perhaps we attract higher quality applicants by paying a competitive wage. If you have the option of making $100,000 working for the government or $1 million working in the private sector, why would you want to get paid 10 times less? Sometimes the things that you get elected for have term limits as well. So whatever money, even if you thought it was good that you could make, you don't get to make for that long. And what about career growth? How much more do you make as you stay in the job? Nothing? What a terrible idea. What a terrible pay structure. And you wonder why the people that run for office aren't the best the world has to offer. Well, the pay isn't commensurate with the job, right? So what else could we do to fix the political system? We could fix the way you vote. So right now, if you go and you vote, you write down one name for each position. Well, that's the least amount of data that I could get from you. Why don't instead I get a ton more data from you and get a ranked list? Hey, I want this guy to win, but if I can't get him, give me this guy. And if I can't get that guy, give me this guy. Then when you combine everybody's ranked lists, you can get someone that everyone pretty much likes, their number 2 or their number 3, instead of getting these polarizing candidates, which make it very hard to get consensus, which makes it very hard to get anything passed because you need the agreement of many people. If all you write is the one person that you like the most, well, on one party, the 51% outdoes the 49% of another party, and then we've now elected someone that half the people don't like. But if everyone as their number 2 kind of liked the same guy, then you could elect somebody that everyone liked quite a bit, and then they could get things done. It may not have been their first choice, but it could have been everybody's second choice. So a ranked list is going to do a much better job serving the intentions of the voter than a single piece of data. So 200, 300 years ago, when these democracies decided how they would vote, they didn't have the same intellectual knowledge as to what a good voting system would look like, which is why all the political systems tend to just 2 parties, because you get competitive advantage. If you and another party can combine into one, you're going to win a lot more, right? And it's probably not so great that it's nearly impossible for a third party to ever occur, because it's unfair to think that the range of human desire and emotion is filtered into just 2 different styles of belief, party A or party B. It's terrible. So what's the third thing we can do? The first thing was get better candidates. The second thing was have a better voting system. Now, the third thing is have better voters, which is dangerous. If you make a voting test that says only qualified, smart enough, intelligent enough to choose between a bad candidate and a good candidate, a person that can see through the bullshit and the lies that all of these candidates like to speak in order to get elected, that's the only person we're going to allow vote. That's a very dangerous test to make. If you do it wrong, you could disadvantage certain socioeconomic groups, certain races, and so the test would have to be written quite well. I would like to say that in all the other areas of life regarding profession, we have been able to make these tests fair. So if you want to be an electrician or a plumber or a hair cutter, you need to get your qualifications and your license, or you're legally not allowed to do these things, right? If electricians didn't require licenses, there'd be a lot more houses burning down, right? So if we've been able to, in other important areas of life, have a good test, which cuts out the stupids from doing bad things, Maybe we can do that with voting too. There's people who have never made a good decision for themselves in their life, and now you're letting them work on your democracy. If a person's not qualified to work on cars, you don't want him working on your car. If he's not qualified to work on people as a doctor, you don't want him trying to cure your health problem. Well, then why is it that any idiot with a heart rate is allowed to vote and we think great things are going to happen? In summary, you need better candidates chosen by a better voting system, ordered lists, and it would be great if the people doing the choosing and the voting were actually qualified to do so. A sincere apology is one of the most important things you'll ever give in your relationship or ever receive in a relationship. I think many people find it hard to give sincere apologies, not because they don't want to, but because maybe they don't know what a sincere apology really looks like. So apologies are best when they give you the feeling that you're not going to have to deal with the same problem again. So if someone were to say, sorry I stepped on your shoe. That's okay. That's not bad, but it's not great. So what might be better? I'm sorry I stepped on your shoe. I understand it probably hurt you. I am very committed to not stepping on your shoe again. Here are the steps I'm going to take to make sure that I never step on your shoe and hurt you again. So what's the difference? One is, I'm sorry this thing happened, but I have no idea what I'm going to do about it. I might not really care about it. I might just be trying to manipulate you into not being mad. And in reality, you're just as likely to get your shoe stepped on again because I don't really care, right? That's what it could be. Or it could be they really do care, but they don't have the skills to know what little check boxes to click to make a good apology good. So the primary goal is to be sincere, understand the other person's feelings, and take steps to make sure that you don't ever screw up the same way again. So if you're unaware what steps you're going to take, maybe spend a minute thinking on it. Maybe taking those steps and not making the same mistake and harming someone again is more important than just throwing that apology out there. Maybe apologies that aren't backed up by thoughtful changes in behavior aren't worth the words they're spoken in, right? So, what did you notice about their feelings? Why are their feelings important to you? What are you going to do to make sure that you don't hurt their feelings again? What steps are you going to take? And why are taking those steps important to you? So using the stepping on your shoe example, I'm sorry I stepped on your shoe. I understand it might have hurt you. Your feelings are very important to me. I don't want to hurt you again. Here are the steps that I'm going to take to make sure that I never step on your shoe again. And, I really value our relationship, and I don't want to be part of a relationship where one person's getting their shoes stepped on, right? Now, once you've given a good apology, they don't have to beat you up as much to try and hope to have a brighter future. They can just live impressed that, oh, they took responsibility. This is unlikely to happen again. All right. I don't have to talk about it anymore. We can move on with our lives. So practice it yourself. Pretend that you made a mistake or go back in your mind into something that you maybe didn't apologize for well enough in your past and apologize to the wall or the television or whatever screen you're looking at and just practice it, because taking responsibility, even for things that aren't truly your responsibility, gives you the power to make them better. If someone rear ends you at a stoplight, you could say it's not really your responsibility, but could you have been on a different street? Could you add a different car? Could you have left at a different time? Could you have been watching your rearview mirror? Could you have not been driving at all? It wasn't really your fault, but there's things you could have done to make it turn out better. And so maybe fault's not the right word. Maybe minor responsibility is the right word. It's more empowering to believe that your behavioral changes can cause a brighter future than it is to think that you're powerless. People need more motivation and less education. I know it sounds crazy, but it turns out nobody's doing the stuff that they already know they should do anyway. Imagine this. Do people want to be fit? Sure they do. The cover of every magazine's covered with advice on how to lose 25 pounds before summer by eating fruit or eating nothing or sweating to death. So everybody knows how to lose weight, but nobody's doing it. So is it an education problem or a motivation problem? It's obviously a motivation problem. We don't need people who are adding things to their list of stuff they regret not doing. We don't need to make longer regret lists. We don't need people that are very, very smart and yet do nothing. We need people that do the things they already know how to do. You know how to lose weight. You know how to get smarter. You know the things that you're supposed to do that you're not. And so if you're going to learn anything, the first thing you should learn is how to start knocking things off your to-do list, how to start knocking things off your one-day list, and how to stop putting things off for tomorrow that you could truly do right now. Machines are already deciding who's going to live and who's going to die as far as people are concerned. So you take a self-driving car. It has to decide whether, when there's an accident going to happen, you run yourself into the embankment and perhaps die harder yourself, or you run over the sidewalk and run over some people. You're likely to live, they're likely to die. The car has to decide these things. Or if it's programmed not to decide, it's still making a decision, right? So the programmers and their ethics and their values are already going into deciding which people live and die in car accidents. Something much more direct and less, reachy, such as the self-driving cars, because there aren't that many yet, are drone strikes. Apparently, the United States blows people up based on their cell phone. So if your cell phone calls the wrong people enough times, the computer thinks that you're likely a threat, it kills you. It's interesting. Maybe sending drones by computer is risky, right? Now, I'm sure there's a human that has to sign off on it, but what does the human know above and beyond what the machine told them anyway, right? They're giving the machine criteria to say, hey, select these people that we probably don't like, and then show them to me, right? So that's at least two places where machines and software developers are already deciding who's going to live and who's going to die. And it's pretty smart that a guy like Elon Musk puts together an initiative, a group of very smart people, partly funded with his own money, to start figuring out the ethics of, what it is to be a good human and what it is to be good in the first place, so that we can attempt to program that goodness into the machines so that, perhaps we never get a paperclip maximizer that one day decides that the world just needs to become the most amount of paperclips and starts trying to turn every molecule of our planet into paperclips, right? That would be a tragic thing for us non-paperclip people. All right, today we're going to have some drinking tips. Tip 1, if you don't have to drink alcohol, it's probably better if you don't. But if you do enjoy drinking alcohol, there's a little tip you can use to not overdrink too much. So if you're the kind of guy that likes meeting people and hanging out with friends and spending a lot of time at the bar where the ordering happens, well, you're going to end up drinking more drinks than if you're the kind of person that kind of hangs out in the back. So one way that you can avoid over drinking a little bit is by having a drink of water in between each alcoholic drink. So you've still got something in your hand, you've still got some reason to be at the bar, you're still being social, you're not entertaining questions like, why aren't you drinking? Or do you need a drink? All these things. And that extra drink in between will space out how quickly you get drunk and will give your liver a chance to save you from total annihilation, right? So another thing that you can do is realize that the buzz that you're going to get, if you're a larger size guy, it gets about as good as it's going to get at 2 drinks. And then everything after 2 drinks, it's not really better, right? So the magic isn't to have 6 drinks and feel annihilated. The magic is kind of a 2-drink buzz and then keep it for as long as you can. And it's harder to do because you've got your best consciousness and your best intellect when you've got no drinks. And then it gets worse with every drink. And so your self-control gets worse with every drink. And so if you ever wake up the next morning wondering, why the hell did I drink so much? It's because it was a cascade. The first failure to maintain your 100% excellent brain function allowed the second drink to happen easier, which allowed the third drink to happen easier, which allowed the fourth drink to happen easier. And then at some point you're not keeping count anymore. And if you're not keeping count anymore, well, why would you be drinking safely, right? I mean, it's very easy to overdo it, particularly when you're having fun with friends, right? Wouldn't it be great if the coolest people from the past didn't just melt away and die, and they were still alive and kicking ass? Maybe Albert Einstein, maybe Thomas Edison, maybe Elvis, whoever your favorite people from the past might be. And I mean, it's better than just not being dead. There was a period where they began to suck before they died, most people, right? So what if we could prevent that period of suckage as well,
It's just like how directors that used to make great films, as they get older, their films tend to suck more. Maybe it's a decline of testosterone. Maybe they've run out of good ideas. Maybe they started to believe in themselves a little too much and stopped paying homage to the past and the great people that preceded them. The point is, whenever I mention that it would be cool if people might live a little bit longer, everyone's quick to jump to a parade of imaginary horribles. They start to say things like, well, dictators will never die. Turns out they die all the time, and it's usually not of old age. Or things like, only rich people will get the technology. Well, every other piece of technology rich people didn't get to keep to themselves. It got very cheap over time. Bill Gates doesn't have a better computer you, doesn't have a better phone than you, doesn't have a better operating system than you. It turns out that once things get good and people use them a lot, everyone tends to have the same good stuff, except for maybe cars, houses, and airplanes. If the less you fly, the less you die in a plane crash, as far as I'm concerned. And it's not bad for the environment either, not burning all that jet fuel. So what I'd love to see in the world is more people being adventurous, thinking about how awesome living a little bit longer could be, and a little less people being defeatist and being whiny little bitches, talking about how bad it's going to be, when the only reference point for how bad it would be is their own imaginations. Discipline is way better than motivation. Sometimes motivation's there, sometimes it's not. Discipline is always there for you. The hard thing about discipline is that it's like a muscle. You have to train it. In order to train a muscle, you need to put it against a weight that it's not used to lifting, right? So it has to grow and respond to it. So if you want to develop your discipline, then you need to do the same things for it and give it something to challenge against that you would for your muscles. So one thing that I like to do is realize that the most gains that you're going to make are on the last rep. It's at the point when you want to stop that you're actually getting the gains and getting the benefits of pushing through and building your discipline muscle. And once you get used to using discipline in one place, it actually teaches you and allows you to use it in other places. So if you're really good at turning down, say, cigarettes, then you could be good at turning down games. Then you could be good at turning down cake, whatever your thing is, right? So when you have the option to decide to either be very motivated or very disciplined, discipline is more reliable. Punishing your loved ones is a really terrible bargain. So let's say someone does you wrong and you want to teach them a lesson and hope that they don't do it again. So maybe you yell at them, scream at them, slam doors, punch things, do whatever it is that you try and make your life worse doing so that they don't like it and then they change, right? Well, that's terrible because first, they've already wronged you once, which perhaps it might have been profitable for them to do. Maybe they showed up really late for something. Maybe even if it wasn't profitable, it was convenient. Now you are making your life worse through your own decision to try and influence them. And if you look at the dynamics of it, all you're doing is costing yourself now in the hopes that maybe the future turns out better. And that used to work a lot better when we had smaller societies where there's maybe 50 people. And in a society where there's only 50 people, your relationships are life or death. If there's a food shortage and you're not, doing well with everyone else in the group, you might not get food and then you might die, right? So we really, really care what other people think about us, and we really care about relationships that work well. And part of why that doesn't work as good as it used to is back then, you got to actually get some of the profits and some of the rewards from these big effortful things that you would do to try and modify other people's behavior, even if it was only subconsciously, right? You may not know exactly why you're being vengeful or trying to teach someone a lesson, but the feeling is there because it used to be very profitable. So these days, you can have a bad interaction with a loved one in the morning, have your morning ruined, and now you're going to maybe have a bad day at work. So there goes, another 8 hours, half of your, time awake that day, ruined, being angry, just thinking about how unfair what happened to you was. And the only day that was ruined was yours. The person that actually wronged you, they're going through their day just fine, right? So it's a little crazy and unfair that there's this first mover advantage to the person who does wrong first, and they get to keep the profit. And then it gets even worse. So the person that did you wrong, if you successfully punish them and, show them through your behavior that they shouldn't do that again, then maybe they get to apologize. And what do people that apologize do? They get nicer, they act, happier and more, submissive. I'm not sure what you want to call it, but they definitely try and make up for what they did. And how do they try and make up for what they did? Well, they get to live a better life. They get to have less stress. They get to be happy. They get to be more joyous. They get to treat you better. While you, some part of you, may see that there's profit in this new behavior, think that you've won the game, and maybe try and milk it for a little longer and act unhappy for longer. Like their behavior mods weren't enough for you. And so now you're going to act crappier for a little longer just so that you can enjoy them treating you better than normal. So first they wrong you, screws you over. Then you screw yourself over by trying to punish them. Then if you get what you want, a good apology and maybe treated better, maybe you screw yourself even a little more by trying to milk that for a while, right? So what's the magic? How do you get out of this? Try to be non-responsive if you can. If you don't have to punish someone, or if you can get better behavior out of them without getting a really frowny face and meh, 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 if you can avoid that, then you get the profit of not having a bad day, not having to treat them, poorly, not putting so much energy and effort into it. And hopefully if you've got the right people in your life, maybe that doesn't come up so often anyway, right? Relationships are mostly about choice. You're going to do a lot better having chosen the right people than you are trying to influence them to act better. People seem to change more often for the worse than for the good. And I know you can't choose your family so much as you can choose your friends and your lovers, but, you can change your environment, right? You can be a lot happier in life by doing something that I call the happiness sampling frequency timing attack. Now, it sounds crazy, a lot of big words in there, but it's actually really simple. All you do is quit after you win. So when you're at the peak state, when it's as good as it's going to get, you stop playing. And then you keep not playing until you forgot about how good the win felt. And then you go back and do it, right? So let's say you do something that you only win about 10% of the time. Maybe it's go out into the public and meet people you want to fall in love with. Maybe it's play a game versus someone that's extremely better than you. Maybe it's lift a certain weight or run a certain time. If you try, fail, win, and then you pause for a while and just ride the highs and ride the waves, you get to enjoy those great feelings of being a champion, of being a winner for a while. Then, once you've, gone through the good times, you can go back into the sport and then try and fail, and then win again. Now, what if you did it a different way? What if you did it the normal way that a lot of people do, where you try, fail, win, and then try, fail immediately after? You're left with that suck feeling of having lost. Now, maybe there's some people out there that have got their psychology so dialed in that they don't feel the losses as hard. They don't throw stuff when their team loses. They don't, constantly think about what they could have done better or different. And for those people, sure, stay in the game. But I think those people are a rarity. I think most people feel much better after a win and much worse after a loss. And so if you can attack the timing of the sampling frequency, right? So basically your happiness is like a wave, right? And sometimes there's peaks and sometimes there's not. And so if you only sample when there's peaks and attack the sampling frequency, right? You only sample when there's a peak. Well, then you think that your life is far better than it is, right? You're totally way happier because you're measuring the peaks and you're not measuring the valleys. So, in effect, you're just happier. Now, are there downsides? Well, sure. If you're a weightlifter, you're not going to be as strong. So I probably wouldn't do it for weightlifting. If you're someone that needs to get every single ounce of performance out, well, you're not going to get every ounce of performance if you're not in the game. But if you're someone that actually cares about the quality of your life, well, there's a lot of places you really can use this timing attack. If you've already won and you don't think you're going to feel any better, why would you ruin it by going out and trying the hard thing again and failing when you could ride the highs? In this world, you get good at what you focus on. You also feel what you focus on. So no matter what's going on in your life, if you are focused on things that are happening in the world that are nice, you're going to feel okay. And if you're focused on things that are not nice and they're always available, you're going to feel not okay. So I like to think of your body kind of like a crystal. And I like to think of the things that you can focus on kind of like different colors of light. And so you can set up the colors however you like. Let's say you call happy green, for instance. So when your little crystal self looks at the happy green things, you become green yourself. And when your crystal self looks at things that, let's say, sucked, maybe really dark purple is your suck color, well, then you're also going to appear to others as something that slightly sucks. So if you're at a party and you can't stop talking about how PETA kills animals or whatever, unhappy thought that you have is out there, then you're going to be a Debbie Downer, and people don't always want to hear about that stuff. So thinking about the things in the world that suck, you basically only do it for long enough to come up with a plan to counteract it. Or if you can't come up with a plan, maybe you don't think about it that often at all, right? Thinking about things that suck takes a toll on your psychology. It's part of the reason that, if you go to a therapist and you set a time to, depending on what kind of therapy you're in, talk about things that suck, you may not leave the office happier than you went in, right? Because you may not have changed the meanings enough in your head to say, thing that used to suck now means this other thing, which isn't so bad, right? So you really got to control what you focus on. In this life, you're going to get good at what you focus on. You're going to feel what you focus on. And focus control, or the habits and patterns of focus that you have, are going to dictate whether you're fun to be around, what things you get good at, what things you end up, your hobbies will turn into things that you make money with. It'll affect who you're around. It'll affect the relationships that you have, who you might end up having kids with. So what you focus on is super important, and understanding that what you focus on affects your own psychology is also super important.